will know that economists are not good at saying that they are wrong. It's probably the one thing we have in common with doctors. But at this conference last week, there was a realization by the best economists in the world that for many years, we've been wrong. And your question could be why? For many years, we thought employment was like a good recipe. If you have the right ingredients, you will have a good meal. If you have education, abana bakiga bakajya mu ishuri. If you have roads and infrastructure and internet, if you have economic growth, which we like to call GDP, then you will have employment. And we could not have been more wrong, because many countries have high GDP, which is, economic growth, have good education enrollment rates, have good infrastructure, and still struggle with employment. And the realization dawned on all of us that employment is not the meal. Employment is not something that happens after all the ingredients have been put in the pot. Employment is an end in itself. We must start with employment. And because we haven't started with employment, we started with other things, thinking they were going to lead to employment. In many economies in the world, we ended up with not enough employment. So the theme of this conference, which was organized by the World Bank and the IMF, there were 3 themes. Can you guess what they were? Jobs, jobs, jobs. And it's a conversation for us in Rwanda, it's a conversation for emerging countries, and it's a conversation for developed countries. So ntabwo ari ikibazo cy'abakene. Hari ubwo tureba ibibazo duhanganye nabyo tukibaza ko ari ikibazo cy'ubukene. Ikibazo cya employment ntabwo ari ikibazo cy'ubukene. N'ibihugu bikize muri umwanya bifite ikibazo. Are we together? I know I'm not as much, I don't have as much talent as the lady, but I'll try to keep you awake. So then comes the question. I think we're very blessed. Today, I was thinking as she was singing, it's interesting, Yuko aririmbye indirimbo aririmbye ya Rugamba. And I think there's a link with the theme. And let me tell you what I think, and I could be wrong, the link is. Many governments in the world know that they have an employment problem, but do not think about the solutions. And I think our government sitting us down in this room and trying to discuss the solution, nimbaraga z'urukundo. It is a will to have a solution that is inclusive. And when we follow these global conversations, we see that in many modern developed society, the will of having an inclusive employment opportunity for all is withering, is disappearing. And employment is becoming an opportunity for the few, while the rest benefit from social protection. And I think it's transformational that we seated here under the auspice of the Minister of Public Service, where we make a commitment collectively that employment has to be inclusive for all. Now, the problem is not small. I think the minister gave us the statistics of the progress we have made. But I also want this talk to talk about the mountain, because the mountain is big. The good thing with Rwanda, we like big challenges. To the song of Rugamba, we are confident that we can manage. But today, 55% of the population is underutilized. Right? Your neighbor in this room is probably underutilized. Well, I hope not, since we have leaders. But according to statistics, labor and I like underutilization, and I'll tell you why in a minute. 55% of the labor force in Rwanda is underutilized. 60% are women, right? So the face of labor utilization has a gender component. And 60% is rural. Are we together? So it's a very specific problem. Yes, overall there's a problem, but the face of the problem is predominantly women and predominantly rural. Now, when we were discussing NST2, something struck us, which is a lot of the progress that we've done so far in Rwanda has been driven by the sheer force of government. But that force has a limit. And it has a limit which tells us that not only do we need to do things differently, but we also need to do different things. And I think very often as humans, when you do well, you want to do the same thing better. And yet, if you have to fix a problem of 60% of the population, you have to be open to doing something else, something different. And that's always uncomfortable because you say, what if I do something different and it undermines what I was doing well? But the message today from Mifotra is that we don't have a choice. If we want to tackle employment where it is, then we need to do different things. Now, why is this also an opportunity? Abenshi mushobora kuba mutabizi, ariko the only continent ifite urubyiruko rwiyongera is ours. Right? Now it can be great if you have 10 children and they're all very well employed, it's a force for your family. Right? A friend of mine recently was telling me, tuvuga turi abantu 8, harimo umuganga, umuforomo, ufite restaurant, ufite ati so twebwe kuri WhatsApp group yacu, ibibazo byose tubikemurira. We don't outsource to anybody. Which is great. Because they're all gainfully employed. They all have decent employment. Now imagine a WhatsApp group with 10 kids, with 10 people who are not gainfully employed. It's a completely different conversation. Right? Twese turazigira. WhatsApp za famille, ureba mu gitondo ugatangira kuvuga ati noneho bazanye ibiki. Ikibazo kiravahe. Right? So there's a very big difference between 10 people gainfully employed and 10 people not gainfully employed, underutilized, right? Now, if you blow this up to the size of our country and the continent, it means Africa will either be a bigger burden than it is today, or it will be a productive solution. And the time is now. I think the numbers that they've shown us are very clear. 1.25 million jobs, decent and productive jobs to be created. Now, I'm an economist, so bear with me. I'm going to have GDP a little bit. A little bit. And abantu batazi GDP ni ubukungu bw'igihugu. Ntabwo ari umushahara. Ni ubukungu. Ni ukuvuga ngo ni value yiyongera ku rwego rw'igihugu. Right? It's value you're creating. Uyu munsi, buri munyarwanda are creating on average $1,000 per year. Average. Right? This is the average between me and my driver. It's on average. Intego twihaye nuko tugomba kugera ku bihumbi 4 by 2035. Ibihumbi 4 is 6 million francs. By 2035. So what is the mission? What do we need to do? Couple of things, and I think some of it was covered by the video. One, it's obvious, more jobs. Number matters, right? We need more, quantity. The second one is more productive jobs, which means buri muntu ku giti cye must produce more for the economy 4 times. Nanjye ndimo, n'umushoferi wanjye arimo, na minister arimo, twese. By 2035, we must be 4 times more productive. So n'ufite akazi, turamusaba kugira umusaruro wiyongera inshuro enye. So it's not just about having more jobs. So nubwo ejo twabyuka mu gitondo twese tukaba mekanisi. Ntago byavamo. Turi kumwe? Ntago byavamo. Because we must be 4 times more productive. Now, the government, of course, always looks very far, and they say by 2050, I'm trying kubara ngenza abanyiriho, right? I don't know about you guys, depending on your age, you know, but I believe I'll be there to see it. The government has decided that the vision is by 2050, now we have given me a kanzawan fit. By then, tugomba kugera kuri $12,000. $12,000 is 18 million buri muntu ku mwaka. Ariko murabyumva neza? What does 18 million buri muntu ku mwaka required? It requires transgenerational wealth. Right? So kurukiramende, it's another level altogether. Noneho ntabwo bisaba ko ngewe mbafite akazi keza, biransaba creating assets nzaraga for generations. It's a completely different conversation. Hari ubwo tuvuga imibare, cyane cyane aba economists dukunda kuvuga imibare myinshi, abantu ntibumve neza icyo bishatse kuvuga. Kugira ngo umwana wanjye azagere kuri $12,000, hari icyo ngomba kumuraga gifatika, an asset. Right? Apana microondes. Like, we're talking about a house. We're talking about bonds. We're talking about shares in a company. Right? Now, go three kuvuga imishana na yanjye na microondes. No. So when we think about this is the mission. This is the mission. 3 things. More jobs, more productive jobs, and transgenerational wealth. Turakeri kumwe? Yes? Okay. So what's the path? Ko intego twese turayizi ubu ngubu. What's the path? Of course, the first path is a difference between skills and education. The education system was created n'abantu twashwanye nabo batwigishije, it was meant as a system of administration. So it was meant to give you knowledge, for you to acquire it and contain it. It was not meant for you to create knowledge. Umukoroni ntabwo yashaka ko witekereza. Sibyo? Umuntu witekereza ateza akajagara, atangira kugira ibitekerezo, atangira kubaza byinshi. So bari bakeneye administrators, people who do what they are told to do. And we have kept the system as is. We are prisoners of a system that teaches us to do what we're told to do. Kandi turabibona twese abakoresha bari hano, umukozi akaza akakubaza nkora iki? Right? Ariko ntacyo wambwiye. Sinabimenye. Why? It's not ko uyu muntu ari injiji, no. Nuko he was educated in a system that teaches us to do what we're told to do. Now, countries that are ahead have education systems that teach them skills that allow them to create knowledge. Right? And I'll tell you a little light story, Kurango. Ejo bundi nagiye muri parents-teacher meeting for my daughter, and her French teacher was telling me afite ikibazo umwana ntajya amenya conjugaison. I'm like, okay, well. But then I have a system where my kids, for any permission, have to send me an email. So I'm like, my daughter sends me emails in French. I don't see what the problem is. So, aramutunganya conjugaison muri vacances muzakore conjugaison. So dutashe mu rugo ndamureba, I say, you're usually hardworking. Ikibazo cya conjugaison ni iki? Arandeba ati ni Google Translate. Guze ndagiye kumenya bino bintu biri online for what? All right? She's 12 years old. The Francophone in me was a little offended. But the policymakers in me knew that she has a point. Arajya guhangana na conjugaison why? Ubu hari software ibikora. Niba afite igitekerezo, azi igifaransa cyumva afite notion, she'll make it. She'll write full emails in French. Right? And I'm saying it because so much time is being spent on teaching us to absorb knowledge as opposed to teaching us to create knowledge. And when you come to and I liked the little play of François and Faustin, who said the mismatch. But what is this mismatch? We keep on talking soft skills, da da da. What is this mismatch? The mismatch is that the labor place today requires people who analyze and create knowledge. And our schools, primary schools, high schools, universities, are teaching people to acquire knowledge. And they get to the workplace and they're like, here, teach me. And we're like, here, do. Right? Now, today is completely different from 20 years ago. Today, knowledge has been democratized. Today, my teams at BRD can learn about anything on LinkedIn. Today, the notion of knowledge is shared. Whereas twebwe dukura, knowledge yarimo umwarimu. Wamuquestioninga ukamera nk'usuzuguye bikabije ariko. But today, knowledge ntabwo iri mu mwarimu gusa. Yes, umwarimu ni ingenzi. But you can also open yourself to other things. Now, the reality is our life expectancy has changed. Did you know that? So it also means that most of the young people will have two careers, not one career. Right? When people died at 45, it was easy to have one career. You worked for 20 years. Now that the average Munyarwanda dies at 70, well, there's a high probability that you'll have two careers and not one. The career I started with is not the career I'm doing now. And as long as we're not teaching the youth to learn, relearn, unlearn, we're setting them up for failure. And I think this idea, those of you that have young children, my son now is 16 and everybody asks him, Uzigiki? And I'm like, well, he's probably going to change his mind 3 times in university. And in the world of today, it's okay. He should change his mind. He should have a plan, but he should change his mind. And I think that idea that careers are now adaptable, flexible, and changing is something that was not put in our heads. Right? Niba uri umuganga wize kuba umuganga wabimaze imyaka myinshi twabitangiyeho amafaranga menshi uzaba umuganga nk'iby'ubukwe kugeza urupfu. No, this is not the modern world. Now, so the path 1, skills versus education. 2, there's a certain obsession that we've had over the years over which sectors contribute the most to the economy. And it's a debate dukunda ngaba economist. Ese bizaba manufacturing, ese bizaba tourism, ese bizaba agriculture, and then tukabigiraho impaka. Right? I think aba muri gouvernement murabizi. My personal belief is that it's not about the sector. It's about how much knowledge do we inject in the sector. How much science will we inject in the sector? If you're somebody who studied genetics for plants and you're in agriculture, I do believe that you can earn more money than a manager in manufacturing. And therefore, I think we're focusing on the wrong thing. We're focusing on the sectors rather than focusing on value addition and focusing on knowledge. And therefore, it almost doesn't matter the sector that our youth will choose, as long as they choose a path of knowledge and value addition. Are we together? Now, third path. First was education and skills. Second is the contribution focus on knowledge. Third, we will not make it if we don't become an entrepreneurial nation, a nation of entrepreneurs. And don't get me wrong, not everybody is an entrepreneur, right? And we'll get to that. That will be number 4. But if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, we will not get to the 1.25 without giving you a platform and you fighting to survive. Now, what does it take to be an entrepreneurial nation? By show of hands, ninde uheruka gutwerera mu bukwe? Mu bukwe cyangwa umuntu yapfushije? Mu mezi atandatu ashize. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Okay? We have a good number. Can we say, I like numbers, 80% of the room, right? ubwo ndabaraka batazamuye nuko baracyari batoya ntibarashaka cyangwa nta gahunda iri hafi. Now, how many of you ni bangahe bari muri room bamaze gutanga igishoro ku gitekerezo cy'umwana ushaka gushinga company? Raise your hand. It's okay. Are you seeing? Now, umuntu aje akagusaba igishoro nubwo byaba ari the same amount utanga utwerera ntayo wamuha. Wamubwira ngo mpa business plan, ese ibintu namenya ko atari by'abateka mutwe, ese adi birabizi, ese ibi bintu warabitekereje, uzafatanya nande, siko bimeze. Ariko amafaranga y'inzoga y'ubukwe nta bibazo tubaza. There's no plan, there's no receipt, budget ni bamwe babizi. Abenshi twakoze ubukwe turanasagura, tugura ibibanza, ariko ntawe bitubajije. Isn't it? Now, why? Because we feel that the responsibility of startup capital is the responsibility of government. Right? Twese turicara tukavuga tuti, ariko leta, Minister wa ICT, Minister of Mifotra, ntacyo bari kudufasha. None se ko ntawe ugufasha mu gutwerera mu by'ubukwe? Ko nta ministeri bishinzwe? Kutabaza ministeri ishinzwe social affairs? Right? So we need to change our mindset. In Nigeria, we call it the Nigerian uncle. Right? Abanyamerika babita angel investing. It's all the same thing. Angel investing, Nigerian uncle, is the same concept. It is that somebody in your near circle of friends and family is ready to contribute a bit of cash for you to start being an entrepreneur. And is ready to take risk. And if it doesn't work, naza kwitu mwambuzi. The same way when the person divorced, nabuvuga ko yakwambuye. Waramutwereye byaranze baratanye nabusubira kuvuga ariko ko wanyambuye. But when it's entrepreneurs, we expect return. We do not want them to fail. And that's the second thing, is if we want to be an entrepreneurial nation, we need to allow failure. We need to allow people to try and fail. Ntago bishobora kuba ikimwaro, ntago bishobora kugira inkurikizi zikabije zizatuma atongera kugerageza. Because the truth is, successful entrepreneurs in this room will tell you, they tried 5, 6, 7 times before they started wearing nice suits and driving the V8. But as a society, we have not yet reached the point where we accept failure as a path to success. And if we want to be an entrepreneurial nation, we need, as a community, to be able to deal with that. Now, since I'm a banker now, I must say we also need to give access to finance to young entrepreneurs. But I want to demystify the idea that our young entrepreneurs will start with a bank. They will start with us. We have to be the Nigerian uncles. Now, the fourth point, and it's probably going to be my last for the interest of time, is as we think about employment, large companies matter. It is important that as a society, we scale companies for them to be large. And we need to encourage companies to be large. And no mvugo yacu urabona ko ntabwo turahagera. Oya yarakize. Buse nose ko yakize ko yabaye munini. Yes. Agomba kuba munini for us to be able to reach these targets. Because if I have a cooperative that is doing jam, confiture, their market is going to be Serena. It's not going to be their neighbors, let's be very clear. If we want them to grow, their market has to be Serena. And I think very often we think about employment, and we need to also think about companies. How do we create more companies, and how do we create companies that scale, that become big, that export? Because these companies are the ones that are going to teach these entrepreneurs to become big. I don't know how many of you know the story of Vuba Vuba. It's one of my favorite entrepreneurial stories. Albert was working for Jumia Food, employee. Jumia was big on the continent. Moi, c'est Mozi Vuba Vuba, no? Ah. Jumia closed down. They closed down their office in Rwanda. And one staff, Albert, was like, ariko ibyo bakora ntabwo ari bitangaza nanjye nabikora. Right? That resilience, the Rwandan resilience that we always praise. Avuga ati nanjye nashinga company. Today, he's creating jobs for digital jobs, which are the productive jobs we're talking about, because his platform is fully digital. He's created jobs which are administrative jobs for people who are helping him manage his business. He's created jobs for the youth. Buri abantu abamotari n'abacyclists n'abaza kuduha ibyo ba delivering bose n'abajeune. He's created jobs along the value chain. Why? Because he had exposure to a large company. He saw the world of opportunities. And I think it's key for those of you that work for large companies to understand that this is a stepping stone for us to create our own large companies. And this is partly why foreign direct investment, companies zivahanze, are so crucial. It is not only the money that they bring, it is also the world of opportunities that come along. So in conclusion, help is not on the way. Nobody is going to come and create these jobs from elsewhere. That is the truth. And these jobs are not going to come from government. These jobs must come from the private sector. With the support of all the stakeholders, you know, if I had to vote for one stakeholder, I would vote for the private sector. Because these jobs must come from the private sector. And government has shown the way, and we have to wonder whether we're going to walk the talk. Now, the future of work is not something we can inherit because of the statistics. The 60% I started with. The 60% of labor underemployment or underutilization reminds us that we're not going to inherit the jobs that we need for the future. We need to create them. We need to create those jobs that are going to create the value for the $4,000 per capita with a sense of urgency. It will not happen organically. So, there are 5 American poets that I like very much that always say, we are the dream of our ancestors. We are the only solution, us in this room, to be able to create decent and productive jobs. Happy Labor Day.